Welcome to Your Career Story podcast, a show that's designed for rockstar professionals looking for that extra booster shot of confidence in their careers. Whether you're trying to get clarity on a job transition, want some work-life balance inspiration, or need a strategy to snag that promotion or raise, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jenna Viviano, ex-Wall Streeter turned startup junkie who now coaches hundreds of clients, empowering them to take back control of the job search and land their dream job. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, and prepare yourself for your weekly boost of career confidence. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Your Career Story podcast, Enneagram bonus edition. We are going to be talking about, in this specific episode, the Enneagram 1 at work. So just as a reminder, the Enneagram is a tool for you. It is a tool for self-awareness, and if we're using it to relate it to potentially to other people, it's primarily just for compassion and understanding. It is not to fix somebody. So I wanted to put that disclaimer out there before we jump in. But Lauren, talk to us a little bit about the Enneagram Type 1.
Okay, Type 1s are the good person, or they're sometimes called the perfectionist or the reformer. And ones are responsible, they're thorough, they're hardworking, with very high standards for themselves and others. Mm-hmm. They know how to do things the right way. Their challenge is to balance out the critical thinking with acceptance and appreciation, and to know when good enough is more productive than exactly right.
Yeah, that's a hard thing.
It is.
It's a hard thing. I have some one friends, and I know that that is oftentimes the struggle. So let's talk a little bit about strengths and weaknesses of that one.
Okay. Ones are very oriented to action. So they're usually always doing something. Their attention is focused on what needs to be fixed in the room. So they can walk into a room and immediately notice, things that aren't straight or things that aren't in their place. Mm-hmm. They can also do that with an organization. They can instantly see the flaws. Part of that is because they are so in tuned with the way things should be in a right way. So they take this idea of being right as kind of a morally right thing. So it's not just right to clean your house because you should clean your house. It is a moral imperative for them. So doing their work well has moral weight and value rather than just, I want to do it well and do it right. It is wrong if I don't do things the best way and the most perfect way. So that makes them very conscientious. Yeah. They are able to stay focused on the ideal of the product or the project. And they have a relentless eye for detail. So they are who you want. Yes, they are who you want to edit your things and to find. If you want to find, if you want to find the mistakes, you hand it to a one.
Wow. That's awesome. I feel like that's such a celebration too of people who, because you can look at that from two lenses, right? You can look at that as a strength in the workplace, and you can look at that potentially as a weakness, like holding you back, right? From actually completing something. So if you're a one in the workplace, how does that work for you? Like, how do you recommend people looking at themselves as a one and how they can use that to their advantage maybe in the workplace?
So I think sometimes ones they've got to shift their thinking about what they are here to do. So a lot of times ones feel the need to control, to make things right. But if they can shift their thinking to, how am I serving with my improving?
I love that.
So they want to improve. And so it's not just for the sake of them being right. They're constantly wanting to improve and reform. And some ones will do that on like a grand scheme. My cousin is a one, and he wants to end homelessness, and genuinely works and devotes his life to that.
That's beautiful.
But there are other ones who are more detail oriented and want to reform on the micro level as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So what are some of the weaknesses potentially so we talked about some of the beautiful strengths of a one. And if you know of a one in your office place, or if you're a one, there are some wonderful, wonderful things about a one, right?
Yes, there are.
And there's some things that we can grow in. So what would some of those things be specifically?
Well, for all the Enneagram numbers, they can tend to take their strengths to the extreme. Yeah. And that's when they become weaknesses.
I love that.
That's for all of us.
I think that's so good to point out it's not necessarily, because I talk about that a lot with clients where instead of trying to fix your weaknesses, maybe it's just to double down on your strengths, but not double down so far that it becomes your weakness.
Exactly. So when you've got, an eye for detail, sometimes ones can get bogged down in the details that may not ultimately matter in the project. So maybe let's say a project is behind and they just need to get it done. If a one is going through the project and changing every verb tense to make sure it matches, but there's, 3 more months of work that they've got to get through, that's slowing the process down. And even though it satisfies their need for perfection, it's not really helping the team. And sometimes they can procrastinate because they'll be paralyzed by the idea of perfection. And being afraid that they can't even start if they know they can't do it exactly the way they want it to get done. Ones can be rigid sometimes. Yes, if they're kind of in that extreme strength space. And sometimes they will refer back to the rules of the organization so that it doesn't fall on them. So they'll, take a hard line on something policy. And go, this is the policy. Well, sometimes policies can be flexible or sometimes they don't apply. But, one who is kind of at their extreme might just be so committed to the policy that they miss the humanity and what's going on around them.
I think we can all learn from that.
Yes,
we can
absolutely.
all learn from that. Okay, so those are some of the strengths. Those are some of the, I'm going to call it extra booster strengths.
Yes.
They can turn into weaknesses. Have we convinced you to get obsessed with the Enneagram yet? Yeah, we thought so, which is why we wanted to send you into this holiday season with a little something so you can continue your Enneagram education. Head on over to www.genevieveviano.com/type to download our free guide, Learn Your Type, Love Your Coworker. This guide is a complement to the bonus Bingeable podcast series, and we've made it stupid simple to understand the Enneagram, your type, and how it can work for your career. We really, really, truly believe that the Enneagram is the best tool out there for teams. So we want to equip you to be the best rockstar professional you can be. Again, head on over to www.genevieveviano.com/type to download Learn Your Type, Love Your Coworker. Okay, let's hop back into my conversation with Lauren. Let's talk a little bit about, so if we're a one, we talked a little bit about, what we can do if we are a one and how to think about that, right? How do we communicate if we know that we're working with a one, right?
Okay.
If they have described themselves as a one, they believe that they're one, how can we better love our coworkers that are ones or better communicate with those people?
All right. Well, the first thing is you need to be on time. Wherever you're going to meet a one, if you have a meeting or anything like that, they want you to be there.
I can appreciate that.
At the same time. Yes. So ones are very focused on appropriateness and etiquette.
Okay.
So they want you to follow all of those kind of societal standards that we all have so that everybody can kind of be in line. And they're highly concerned with appropriateness. So you're not going to want to just play around by being strangely inappropriate in the workplace because that will make them really, really uncomfortable. When you are, particularly if there is something where you might be in conflict with a one, you need to own your mistake and take responsibility for it because they already know your mistake. They know what you've done wrong. And because they're so plagued by their own mistakes, they want you to see it and they want you to take responsibility for it. So when you do that, when you're able to say, man, this is how I missed it. This is my fault. I'm so sorry. Then they can jump in and help you make the correction that needs to be made. But if you're just denying that you made the mistake or trying to hide it or skirt around it, they're going to resent you for that.
That's good points.
Let's see. You can also help them see their flaws as like a growth edge or as part of being human. They have a very difficult time accepting their flaws. And if you lead a one, they really need positive affirmation if you have any kind of correction. And if you need to
feedback of any sort.
Right. Any kind of negative feedback, you want to do that in private so that they're not, because they kind of feel like their mistakes are on display for everyone if it's, in public. And I know that a lot of these things that we're going to talk about throughout all of the types, it's going to kind of feel like maybe that you're pandering to people or whatever, but it's it's okay to work with people the way that they need to be worked with.
I agree.
So that everybody can win. So if you're just so hard in, well, I don't feel that way, so you shouldn't have to.
Sure.
I shouldn't have to relate that way.
Yes.
That doesn't really help anybody. They want clear communication and clear expectations because they're going to meet whatever you set out.
Right.
So if your expectations aren't clear and then you come back later and say, oh, well, you should have done this, that's going to make them very angry because they're going to say, well, you didn't tell me that. You didn't tell me. So when you're giving them things for a project, make it very, very clear and make everything measurable,
right?
Because they're going to come back to that over and over to make sure they're hitting those marks.
Yeah. I think just even in general, what you said about the pandering piece, what makes really great leaders are people that are able to understand their individual employees.
Yes.
And be able to speak to them differently. I had a manager and I worked at the New York Stock Exchange. If you've listened to my podcast, you've probably heard me talk about him. He was a great man and a great leader. And he knew that we all had our different motivations, our different ways we operated. And he spoke differently to each one of us based off of that.
Yeah.
And we all loved him. There was no one in our office that did not love him because he led us really well. He had high standards, but he spoke to us all in the way that we need to be spoken to.
Right.
And so I think that if you are thinking like, oh, we don't need to do that because I don't operate like that, then you're not going to be a great leader. You have no growth in yourself. So I think this is great just for us to know in general. And what a great gift that you're giving people that are listening that are managers, because oftentimes, I don't know about you, but there are so many managers that I know out there that have never gotten properly trained on how to lead people, like middle management, leadership that are executive, they probably have, but people that are middle management, if you're listening to this and even if you just manage one person, this is hugely, hugely valuable to you. Yeah. So I will get off my soapbox.
Well, that's why I feel like the Enneagram is so important at work is because of just that. We don't understand each other. And usually at work, we don't have the time to sit down and have, deep conversations like, who are you? Where have you come from? And a lot of people don't want to do that at work.
Yeah, which makes me upset, but
yes. And the Enneagram can kind of give us a shorthand for, okay, I know that this is how you see the world. Sure. So how can I work with that?
Yeah.
And it's good for ones also when they kind of get bogged down in the details. Yeah. You can help them broaden their scope by appealing to their desire for the greater good. So, if it, like that project we were talking about, if they're, changing verb tenses over and over, but you need different work to be done to get finished. Yeah. Helping them step back from it a little bit to see, this getting it done helps the company. I know you want this to be right, but for the good of everyone, this is how we need you to do it.
I love that. Really speaking to them. So what are some other things what else should we know about if you're a one or if we need to communicate with one? Are there certain growth things that they can do?
Sure. Yeah. If you are a one, here, I'm going to give 3 practices for growth for each of our types.
I love that.
One of the things you can do as a one is seek after the higher ideal of staying connected rather than being right. Because sometimes when we dig in to being right, that isolates you from people because it puts them off in a way that, you are, as a one, seeing it as I'm trying to make this good for everyone. Right. But other people don't view it that way. They view it as being critical or being attacked. So if you can, like we said before, step back a little bit and see the good for everyone is to be connected and relationships to be good. And sometimes the need to be right takes away from that. Yeah. So thinking about the ideal of staying connected rather than just being right. Yeah. Ones have an inner critic going in their mind at all times. Okay. It is hard for us who are not ones to understand that. So as a one thing you can do to quiet the inner critic is to have out loud gratitude. So not just thinking about things that are going well, but actually saying out loud what is right in this situation instead of seeing all the flaws, and out loud saying what you're grateful for. And bonus points to if you go and tell the person what they're doing right and tell the person how you're grateful. And the last thing for ones to grow, is what we talked about before, shifting your view from controlling to serving. So you've got to always be checking in with yourself. Am I trying to control this, or am I trying to serve the company or serve my team? And one way to do this is to not should on people. Telling them, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, because you always know what people should be doing according to your version of right if you are a 1. Instead, maybe try asking questions instead of just telling them what you think they should be doing.
That's great. I love those. Those are great options. So I know people are going to ask me, how do I learn what my type is if I don't know it? So what would you suggest for that? And then we're going to get into the freebie that you have for people, and then also how they can get connected to you if they want to learn more about the Enneagram at work.
Okay. So tests are all over the place now.
Yes,
now that the Enneagram has grown. If you have time to actually research and read, I would say that is more effective than a test, because a lot of the time, depending on who has made the test, it's not testing for motivation. It's just seeing the behaviors. So a lot of the behaviors of different types can look the same, but the reason why you're doing it is what distinguishes you. So The Road Back to You is a great book to start with, or you can go on the Enneagram Institute website.
Love
and they
that
have
website.
Descriptions of all the types that you can read through. Or the best way, I think, is to have somebody come in and teach your team. So that is what I would like to be doing. And so you can contact me and I can do team teaching for everyone. We can figure it out together and then be able to talk specifically about who you have in the room and how your types interact with each other.
I love that. I think that's so great. So if they want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
www.laurenelkinsgray.com.
And we'll have this in the show notes. And there's also a freebie that you can access to learn more about the Enneagram at work. And you can find that at laurenelkinsgray.com/freebie. Super simple.
Yes.
All right, guys, we're going to be recording Type 2 next. See you then. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to Your Career Story podcast. I would love to get to meet you. And there are a couple of ways that we can connect in between episodes. First and foremost, I love my LinkedIn. Second is via Instagram. And third is over on my website. I actually have a special spot just for you full of fun, free resources. So all you have to do is go to www.jennaviviano.com/resources. Super simple, for a bunch of freebies that will help you boost your career. Hope to see you next week.